You can do whatever you like. This is the city that never rests. I mean, it never sleeps, just like the song says.
Lots of people come and have their wedding photographs taken here. Any event with Brooklyn Bridge in the background comes up better, don't you think?
Well, this is the John Lennon Memorial, the Imagine Circle. There are always lots of tourists and Beatles fans here.
This is the Statue of Liberty, a gift from the people of France to the people of America for the 100th anniversary of the independence of America.
If you look, you see the posters of all the shows on Broadway, because Times Square is at the junction of Broadway, which is where all the theatres are.
Now we're visiting the largest outdoor set in the world. The streets of this city have been the scene of so many films. Do you recognise this? We're in New York. Here the cabs are bright yellow and some shops and restaurants are open 24 hours a day. That's why this is known as the city that never sleeps.
Okay, so now we're downtown and there's the heliport. I'm going to show you the city from a different perspective. In fact, from the air, from a helicopter.
Okay guys, up we go.
Oh my god! So now on the right, we've got the Statue of Liberty. And right now we're flying over downtown New York.
Here, on the right, is the famous USS Intrepid, an aircraft carrier which has been converted into a museum. Now we're in a dangerous area. Down there's the Bronx. The Bronx is really more notorious than dangerous. On the whole, New York is a very laid-back city. Now we're heading down the centre of Manhattan, right across the heart of Central Park. Maybe we'll see someone we know on the Empire State Building Observatory. Now we're going round the Empire State. In front of us is New Jersey. Brooklyn Bridge is the first one, right in front. So guys, welcome.
We're going to take a cab to the Meatpacking District, which is the most fashionable area of New York right now, and we're going to see something really interesting. Basically, there are really cool clubs and the most famous designer shops, hotels and restaurants. Over there is what used to be a railway platform, but it's no longer in use. So what's happened is that it's been restored as a boardwalk. In summer, when the weather's good, people come here and sunbathe. And also, because the river's close by, it's a little cooler, a lot less humid, not the same as being on Fifth Avenue. We've arrived at the Empire State Building, which, as you know, is the tallest building in New York after the World Trade Center came down. There's an observatory on the 83rd floor and another on the 102nd.
This is really fast, isn't it?
Yeah, really fast. You feel your ears go pop. They get blocked up because of the speed of how quickly we're going up.
How long did it take to go up?
1 minute.
80 floors.
80 floors. Here behind me is the Chrysler Building, which was built almost the same time as the Empire State. The area was put on mainly for Zeppelins to dock, and so passengers could get down through the building. But in the end, it turned out to be too dangerous, and I think it was only done a couple of times. If you've seen the film King Kong, this is where he was, holding onto the aerial with a girl in his hand, and where King Kong dies at the end of the film. You can see Fifth Avenue perfectly at this moment. All we can see are the yellow cabs. And now we're off to Chinatown, the most picturesque neighbourhood in all of New York. This is Columbus Park, where all the Chinese community meets up.
Are there many Chinese people in this area?
It really is a very typical park.
And many pigeons?
You bet. A lot of pigeons. People come here to play cards. Don't ask me why, but look. We're on the southern part of the island now, very near the financial district.
These are the typical streets of Chinatown. Right now we're on Mulberry Street. This is also the market where Asian people buy their produce for their restaurants. The fish is really well priced. But honestly, when you get here, the smells completely put you off buying anything. If you look, all the posters are written in Chinese because this is where the Chinese community lives and they don't speak English. Like when you go into a Chinese restaurant and the menu is in Chinese, you have to order like this. I mean, pointing. Well, here in the market in Chinatown, you can get almost anything, like frogs.
Let me see.
And they're not small
Wow,
ones.
they're enormous.
Wow, the biggest one.
Right, well, this is the heart of Soho. Luxury stores, really expensive apartments, art galleries. Lots of famous stars like Rihanna or Mariah Carey have homes here.
Okay, so now we've arrived in Times Square, the centre of the world, and you can see it's all full of lights from the advertising screens. Did you know that the oldest advert in the square is for Coca-Cola? They pay $1 million a year to have it there. It really stands out. It's incredible. I think it's the attraction that the tourists most like. You can also spend New Year's Eve here listening to the famous countdown, and it's such a great event for Times Square. If you look, you'll see the posters for the shows on Broadway, because Times Square is at the same junction with Broadway, where all the theatres are, and also all the adverts for like The Lion King, West Side Story is also there, The Phantom of the Opera.
Here's a bull. And what's a bull doing in
Yes,
New York?
it's a symbol of the financial district of New York, the symbol of Wall Street. And the bull somehow represents the stock exchange, doesn't it? It's strong and dynamic, with lots of energy, but at the same time unpredictable. And we know that very well lately because of the crisis we've had here. We hope the bull carries on, but doesn't gore us. The city of New York has been through a lot. Lots of jobs have been lost, and well, now the situation is getting a bit better, don't you think? Everything to do with money and businesses here. Now we're on Broadway. Broadway is a really long street, and it literally crosses Manhattan. This is the place where the parades are held, where they throw confetti and all that. And for example, this is where they celebrated victory in the Second World War with Eisenhower. This is Holy Trinity Church next to Wall Street, and it's rather a contrast of a colonial building from when the English were here and all the skyscrapers. The contrast that here even bankers have to go to church.
Well, and this is the typical school bus, isn't it?
Yes, for school children. Here they're going to school.
They're picked up at the roadside and taken to school.
New York is a city people say isn't really part of the States because it's totally different from the rest. But essentially, it's also American, and here people are very proud of their country.
What are people like here in Manhattan?
Are a special kind, usually more individual. People who come here to fulfill a project, their dreams, so they're very enterprising. Okay, well, this is Wall Street. Wall here means city wall. The Dutch built it. They were the first settlers in Manhattan. Of course, they built it after the Indians left, precisely because of them, to be separate from them.
So here there was a wall that divided the city.
That's right, a sort of protecting barrier. Well, this is smoke from the heating systems of the older buildings, which use steam. So when it's released, it comes out into the street. The typical image you see in films with smoke coming out of a corner and everything else in the dark.
So it's real.
Well, it's real, all right. This is the New York Stock Exchange. It's unbelievable. It's an old building, but at the same time very modern inside, generating 8 billion transactions a day in stock purchases and sales. Usually the flag of the USA is hoisted, especially since 9/11, or if a company comes onto the exchange. Well, it's been substituted by this other one. We're on Stone Street, the oldest one in New York. See, it's got cobbles, and we have these typical fire escapes, because in the 19th century there were lots of fires. The immigrants lived all crammed up in those buildings, so it was compulsory to build those stairs. Right, so this is Battery Park, and here we've got great views of the Statue of Liberty, and it's a place where lots of movies have been filmed, from romantic scenes to police chases. The city is a stage, really. What we have here is a shop window of what goes on in the world. If there is such a thing as a world capital, I think that it's New York.
Now we're on the ferry to see the Statue of Liberty.
Yes, this is a ferry that takes you to the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, which is the immigrant island. I'd say this is the most visited site in New York. By tourists, I mean. Here is Ellis Island, which is where the immigrants from Europe were taken before being allowed into the USA. They were offloaded here and they had medical checks. And if they were healthy, they were allowed in, and if not, they were deported or put into quarantine. Nowadays, it's a museum. This is the Statue of Liberty, a gift from the people of France to the people of America to celebrate the first centenary of the independence of America back in the 19th century.
To visit it, you have to take a ferry because it's on an island, isn't it?
Sure. It's on an island opposite Manhattan. The French gave us the statue, but then it was very expensive to erect the pedestal.
Here it is. It's really impressive from down here.
Yes. The statue was designed by Eiffel, the architect of the tower. It was brought in pieces from France, and then it was assembled here. The face is the face of the sculptor's mother. Honestly, this is one of the places you really have to visit when you come to New York, because of all it represents.
And from the Statue of Liberty, you also get a very typical panorama of Manhattan.
Yes, it's a spectacular skyline, the outline of the buildings in Manhattan. And if you look, it's the main area of skyscrapers in downtown New York, and the southern part, and then in the centre it goes lower because it's a more residential area, and then it goes up again with central Manhattan and Times Square and all that area of office blocks. Well, I'm getting a bit hungry. We're going to have some sandwiches in one of the most authentic eateries of New York, Katz's Delicatessen.
I see on the wall there are lots of photographs of famous people who have been here.
Yes, yes. Politicians like Bill Clinton or Gorbachev, or actors like Tim Robbins, Woody Allen.
So what's on the table?
Well, we've got pastrami, brisket, and beef. So what we do is make our own sandwiches. Of course, we've also got the most famous hot dogs in all New York. This is really something.
In New York, you have to look upwards. You see how the buildings change. The best thing is to walk around. You can walk down the same street 10 times, and something new will surprise you, always. This is Hell's Kitchen, a very emblematic zone full of all kinds of restaurants. The truth is that the food of this city, people say you can't eat well, but no way. Here I discovered Thai and Indian cuisine, so many good places. It's really not that expensive. Here's Bryant Park. It's like an all-rounder downtown. So we have lawns, there's a stage, and for Christmas there's an ice rink and stalls. Then they take it down, and Fashion Week is set up, a catwalk, huge tent, grandstand to see all the models and everything. Then they rip that up and replant all the grass and the garden grows back. Here you can do anything. It's the city that never rests, that never sleeps, just like the song says.
Here is another of the most emblematic buildings in the city.
Yeah, the Chrysler Building, supposedly the beginning of Art Deco. I don't know if that's true, but that's what it said in Trivial Pursuit. Personally, one of my favourite buildings is this one down here, Central Station. It's there thanks to Jackie Kennedy. There was another station, but they knocked it down and then rebuilt it, bigger, underground. Then Jackie Kennedy got interested and raised funds and convinced people not to demolish the Central Building. What I like is the contrast of having a building right in the middle of the Chrysler skyscrapers. And it's a place I love passing. And even if I'm going somewhere else, I go out of my way and cross over through the station. Now you'll see it inside. It's a place that's been filmed really often.
And of course, the flag of the United States on high.
Well, here, being patriotic isn't a bad thing. You know, not like in other places. This is a country that uses its symbols very well, and quite honestly, you'll see it everywhere. As I said, this is the place where they're the most. Lots of adverts have been filmed here. But look, this is the booking office, where people come and go, arrive, depart. Up there, there's a really cool restaurant too. I don't know if it's a franchise, but it belongs to Michael Jordan. The hamburger bar is Michael Jordan's. Now we're on Fifth Avenue itself, the shopping street. Although Madison and Lexington Avenues are really important too. Here in this country they charge you for everything, absolutely everything. They say if you don't pay, you don't appreciate what you get. That's Tiffany & Co. and just look at what Tiffany's all about.
A shop from a film, isn't it?
Sure is. Breakfast at Tiffany's. And still with shops, and this is one where I think all children should come here at least once. I think you'll find it familiar. Spectacly see inside.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, more than one of us has seen this film. I'd better stop talking so you can listen.
This is Tribeca. It's rather different from what you usually see in New York. It's quite poor, a lot of immigrants, but at the same time it gives the city a certain charm. This area of Queens borders on Brooklyn, the beginning of Brooklyn. These houses are the typical ones you see in Queens. The smaller ones, usually two families live in each house. We're still in Brooklyn, and this is one of the best vantage points to watch the fireworks display on the 4th of July. Behind here is Brooklyn Bridge, the Statue of Liberty, and the Manhattan skyline, which is always amazing. No matter how many times you've seen it, it takes your breath away. This is one of the places people like to visit, especially in summer, to sit on the benches, which is something you don't often see here in Manhattan, and just take in the views. Lots of people come and have their wedding photographs taken here. Any event with Brooklyn Bridge in the background comes up better, don't you think? Let's cross Brooklyn Bridge. It's supposed to be one of the most impressive views in New York. This was one of the first bridges to be built both elevated and made of steel. Truly a part of the history of New York. We're in Manhattan, on the other side of the river.
What a scene, what a contrast. The boats with the skyscrapers in the background.
This is really impressive. It's an open-air museum. This is the oldest harbour in Manhattan. Opposite the harbour is the Titanic Memorial, a lighthouse which was built to commemorate the victims of the Titanic. Before, it was near the river, and using a telegraphic message, a time ball would drop down a pole and signal 12 noon to the ships in the harbour. That's the Flatiron Building. It's one of the characteristic emblems of New York. It divides Fifth Avenue from Broadway, and is rather an interesting form, if you notice, like the sole plate of an iron.
Now we're in the greenest area of New York.
This is the Dakota Building. The Dakota Building was where John Lennon once lived and where Yoko Ono still lives now. It's one of the most exclusive buildings in New York. Well, this is the John Lennon Memorial. It's the Imagine Circle, and there are always lots of tourists and Beatles fans, because this is where, you know, they pay tribute to him. This Here's Washington Square Park, and this is Washington Square Arch, erected in honour of George Washington's presidency. The square is a meeting place for New Yorkers. The fountain was moved up a bit to line up with the arch. It wasn't here before, and the streets that lead off, where the tree is Fifth Avenue, where it begins. Right now, we're on the riverside, on the western edge of the West Village, on the Hudson River. Here, people come to do sports and to run.